third video, and here we're gonna go into detail. Right, so the question is what constitutes badness, right? So luckily there's a bunch of things that we can know. So let's see. Oh, it's quite obvious what it means. So it's quite obvious what it means not to have AOV and LTV, right? So now the question is, what does it mean to have bad ads? What does it mean to have a bad page? Right, so let's take the bad page first. Okay, so what do we have on the page, which is the link, basically, the destination link. So let's see. Let's see. Product, price. Okay, let's ask the question, why do people buy? So people buy if there are a bunch of things, a bunch of contexts, but 3 of them that I know are the following. The product or the offer has to be something they want, because the opposite, if they don't want it, then that's a context that would lead to failure, that would not lead to sales. So because the opposite results in something that's unsuccessful, that doesn't necessarily mean that its opposite results in success. It only means that the opposite doesn't result in failure. You see, yeah. So if they don't want the product or the offer, then despite everything being excellent, they won't buy. However, if the product and the offer is something that they want, there might still be elements that would make them not buy. But we want to operate in this context because its opposite would result in failure, right? So that's why we take the opposite, and this is a context that we want to be in our favor. Obviously, because the opposite will result for sure in failure. Okay, so now we have the context where they want the product or the offer. The second context is that they are willing to pay the advertised price. Okay? Because if they want the product but they're not willing to pay that price, they won't buy. So now we take the opposite, which is this particular context. So now we have those 2 contexts in our favor. There are still reasons why they still won't buy. So the third reason is that they want to buy from us, the seller. Because if they don't want to buy from us, if they despise us, if they hate us, if they whatever, even though the price is right and they want the offer, they won't buy because they don't want to buy from us. So they're going to search somebody else to buy from. They're going to go on Amazon. But if they want to buy from us for some particular reason, then, you know, it's quite a good thing to have in our favor. It's an important context to have, because the opposite would result in failure, right? So now let's imagine that they want the product, they're willing to pay the price, and they want to buy from us, right? Is there another context? Yeah, sure. What if they don't believe in themselves, right? They don't believe that they're worthy. Like, they want the product, they're willing to pay the price, they want to buy from us, but they feel they don't have enough self-esteem, right? They're not confident and whatever, right? So another context is that they feel, which is the opposite of the context that's leading to failure, which is self-doubt, right? And, you know, the proper opposite of having self-doubt is that they don't have self-doubt, right? Instead of me throwing a notion such as self-esteem, confidence, being proactive, let's keep it very, very analytical and precise. And let's say the proper opposite of self-doubt, which is they don't have self-doubt. So the proper opposite of having self-doubt is not having self-doubt. And it's very important to be precise. Sometimes we can get away from it, but in order to construct something stable and reliable and properly, we have to do this. Okay. Now, let's say that they don't have self-doubt, they want to buy from us, blah, 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 right? What's the reason why they won't buy? Well, they might not be in a situation that facilitates buying. For example, they're in a bus, or, right, they have to run. So the opposite of being on a rush, or, oh, no, actually, the opposite of being in a circumstance that doesn't facilitate selling, buying, it's not being in a proper situation, right? That's a false opposite. The proper opposite is that they are not in a situation that doesn't. So it's a double negative, but it's the proper way of doing it. Facilitate buying. So they're not in a situation that doesn't facilitate buying, right? And of course, another reason might be that they don't have their credit cards with them or whatever, right? So the proper opposite of not having something is having something. Right now, we don't need to do the double negation. We can simply say they they have the means to buy. Right? Now, there are other elements, such as they were pre-framed by some sort of television series to buy this product or whatever, right? But those are things that, like, we can continue and continue and continue, but at some point it becomes diminishing returns, right? That's why David Mills says to eliminate failure conditions. So we've eliminated a bunch of failure conditions. And he says eliminate failure conditions until we get past a certain threshold, right? We can't be perfect, because even if we're perfect for some people, we're going to alienate some other people. So in some sense, we need to be broad. And sometimes we can't continue to be broad while improving the conversion rate, right? So anyway. Okay. Right. So those are the contexts on the page. Okay. Now let's go into detail into each one of them, right? So let's start with they want to buy from us, right? So let's take this particular context that we want to operate in, right? So from what I've analyzed from David Mills, the reason why people like a particular seller is because of this certain things, right? The seller feels like them basically, instead of somebody that's different from them, right? So you would rather buy, and when I say it's like them, I'm gonna add here, the seller feels like what's important about them. Right? So for example, you have an iPhone, and you identify as somebody that has an iPhone, but you also identify yourself as living in Singapore. And what's more important, right? Is it more important for you to identify that way or that other way? So it's important to take into account the important aspects that people identify themselves, right? Like if we say that somebody identifies as an athlete, as a proactive athlete, that's more important than them identifying as being good with grocery shopping, for example, right? Okay, so let's say that somebody identifies as a proactive athlete, so that's very important for them. So if they see the seller is also a proactive athlete, then they're like, oh yeah, the seller is like me. And now they like the seller, because we like people that are like us by default. In what's important for us, of course. Like, I don't care if somebody eats certain foods, right? That's not important for me. So he might differ from me in that way, but it's not important, right? Whereas if somebody's believing in spirituality with crystals and praying to Hindu gods, then that's an important distinction, and that will make me not buy from that person. Okay, but if somebody is simply eating some particular vegetables, then I don't care. Okay, so this is the first thing. This is the first context. The seller feels like them. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we want to see the competitor as that has a bad product page, right? So we want to notice the fact that let's say that somebody's advertising let's say that somebody's advertising luxury dresses, but in the store it feels like the store is low level, it's not high status, whatever. So that's implying that the seller is a broke person. It's like not prioritizing status. And the buyer is prioritizing status in order for them to buy a high luxury dress. So the fact that the customer sees that the store feels low budget, it feels like the seller is not prioritizing what's important for them, which is status. And that's a reason why they won't buy. And that's why here, if we see that somebody is profitable, even though they're not prioritizing what's important for the customer, and we can know what's important for the customer by thinking, okay, what's the ideal customer to buy this particular product, right? If, somebody's selling television sets and, he wants to sell a lot of them, right? So who's the ideal client? Well, the ideal client would be somebody that would feel like it's important to have, let's say, a big television sets, right? So the client would be somebody that feels like it's important to have big television sets. So if we see a product page that communicates that, okay, we have this big television set, which is for people that are snobs and they're full of themselves, then the client sees that the seller is not like them. It's like, why are you saying this? So we want to see this mismatch. We want to see competitors that are not behaving as if they will be liked by their customers, right? Or they're pretty neutral, right? We want to see them not having this particular frame or this context in their favor, because then we come along and we will transform the page such as to have this particular frame, and it will increase the conversion rate a lot. However, if the competitor already has this particular frame, well, there's not room for improvement here, right? So we want to see people that don't have this particular frame. Okay, so let's see. This is one important frame that's gonna increase conversions a lot, and probably not having it will destroy everything. And if the competitor doesn't have this and he's still profitable, that's an excellent context to start with. Okay, what's the other frames? So other frames are competence. If they are perceived as incompetent, they have a lot to lose, right? So we want to copy people that are perceived as incompetent. Serious. We want to copy people that are perceived unserious. And then we have congruent. We want to copy people that have some things that make the mind process that are incongruent in some sense. Then basically buying our own products, right? If the seller is showing that they're not buying their own products, then that's a failure condition. So we want to see if the competitor is not showing that they're buying their own products, because there's going to be room for improvement. Non-needy, that's an important frame. And by the way, all of those are non-overlapping frames. You see, somebody might be competent, but they might be needy, right? Or somebody might be competent and might be unserious. So for example, a crazy Einstein, for example. Einstein seemed very competent, but he didn't seem very serious with his haircut and his behavior, right? And that's why I'm saying that those are non-overlapping, right? So the competitor might mess up in any one of those, and the more he messes up in those, the better. Okay, then what else do we have? We have, oh, of course, the fact that he doesn't have guarantees, right? Guarantees. So if they don't have guarantees, well, there's room for improvement for adding guarantees. Okay, right. And of course, there's, enthusiasm, or as David Mills calls it, moving forward, right? Energy, vision, etc. Right? So if the competitor doesn't communicate those, then there's potential for improvement, right? Right. So these are the most important contexts that make somebody like Well, that makes somebody want to buy from us as opposed to from Amazon or from somebody else, right? So the seller likes us, and then there are all of those things, right? And if somebody sells to you something, and if you like him, if he's competent, serious, congruent, non-needy, gives guarantees and enthusiastic, then this bottleneck right here is being taken care of, right? So there's no point in investing more resources into this particular potential bottleneck if it's gonna be taken care of in this way, right? Of course, there are other things here, but they are not as important as those ones. Right, then we look at the other bottleneck. That constitutes a failure condition for a bad page. So the other bottleneck is this one. They are willing to pay the advertised price, right? So here we start with copying people that have a particular advertising price, and I'm not sure how to spot, whether a competitor has a price that's not so well optimized, right? It's not clear from the start. However, with those things, it's pretty clear for me at least. And here it's just about split testing prices. And also, I'm not so sure about this one, right? Because I can't tap into the mind of the customer to see, right? So in a sense, what I'm basically saying is that the only places I know where to look at the first glance and see whether they're messing up is whether those particular frames are missing, those particular ones right here. So we wanted the competitor not to have those because I'm not sure about those, right? So let's see. Right, so up until now, I covered the bad page side. Which is composed of those three elements, this, or context, this and this. Okay, then let's talk about what does it mean to have bad ads. Right, so let's put it here, and this is bad ads. Now, again, it's very hard to notice. I mean, in some cases, it's pretty obvious whether an ad is quite bad, right? But it all depends on the customer's psychology, and in a lot of cases, an ad might seem bad, but it's actually doing a very good job, right? So in this sense, it's all about split testing, and it's the same thing with the advertised price, right? So this is unknown, and the price is unknown, whether it's bad or not. This is unknown, right? Now, those other things, like they don't have self-doubt, they're not in a situation that facilitates buying, and they have the means to buy, right? Here's what's useful here, right? And this is quite awesome. It's that we want to copy competitors that don't have many payment options available, right? So if we were to copy somebody that had the debit card possibility of purchasing and PayPal, and separately from that, we could copy somebody that just had the debit card possibility with no PayPal, or just the PayPal with no debit card possibility. You see, we would want to copy the people that don't have many payment options available, because if they're successful, despite the fact that they don't have many payment options available, we're going to be even more successful by adding both PayPal and the debit card, right? So that's how we know that they're a mess, that they don't have this and they don't have those, because we don't really know, whether they're in a situation where that facilitates buying. We don't really know whether they have self-doubt or not, right? And we don't know whether their ads are really bad, right? So in a sense, what I'm saying, and also this one, AOV and LTV, right? So In the last video, I talked about, so in the first video, it was like, we want to copy people that are successful. In the second video, I was saying, we want to copy people that are a mess. And in this third video, I went into detail and I explained all the ways in which they could be a mess. And then I went on to say, what are the ways in which they are a mess, and it's apparent that they are a mess from the start. And it's apparent to us that they're a mess from the start if they don't have AOV, if they don't have LTV, if they don't have many payment options available, and this is more subtle, they are not communicating those important frames in the product page. This is what we can know and how we can judge from the start whether they're in a mess in those particular red areas or not, right? And we would ideally want to copy people that are successful, that have as many of those red things as possible, because the more they have, the more room for improvement there's going to be. So this is the third video.